can dive into the content of the presentation. First off, it's the legislative process in a nutshell. So I think first we just want to outline at the outset. There's three primary traits of a legislative body, and that's a legislative body from everything from federal Congress down to the like a city board, right, or a municipal legislative body, or a county board, or even the state legislatures. Those three traits they're reactive, they're slow working, and they depend on consistent input. And when I say reactive, that's really what I mean by that is that they're reacting to the ideas, the problems, the comments brought to its attention by constituents, interested parties like us at OFRF, and the groups that help represent both of us. And that's coalition organizations, professional societies, and the like that. I think it's important to really stress this point that if a legislature doesn't know about a problem or an issue, then they can't act on it. And then conversely to that, if they don't know that something is really important or really working really well, then they can't defend and support it, right? And that's really just to hit home that we need to just continue to communicate to legislatures at all levels on what is working and what isn't working, because that's what they depend on. And when I say slow, some of you might have heard the kind of legislative process analogy, that was the bicameral legislative process analogy that was put forth by some of the founding fathers, that the House is the teacup and the Senate is the saucer, and that means that there's a lot of different places to cool down the coffee, I guess, is the way to try and make that fit. So I'm just going to take you a little through the legislative process in a very specific nutshell, that I'm trying to pack an entire semester's worth of legislative law course into about 5 minutes here. So please bear with me. So like I said, at first it starts with an idea, and that can come from me, it can come from you, it can come from legislative staff, it can come from anywhere. Then once that legislative idea is put forth and brought to the attention of a member that's willing to act on it, that idea is then translated into legislative language. And that's the role that I was playing in the legislative council position for the Vermont General Assembly. Essentially, it's a state assembly person would come forward and be like, I want to do this. And then it's the legislative council and other aides role is to take that idea and turn it into what it would mean in legislative language and statutory language, and really try and put that idea into reality rather than just in concept. Then that legislative language, if the member wants to introduce it, they do introduce that bill, and that goes to the full floor and then gets referenced to a committee. And essentially, a committee is just a mini legislature that is full of subject matter experts. Generally, the committee that we're most concerned about is the agriculture committees of both the Senate and the House, as well as the agriculture subcommittees of the Appropriations Committee. And once this committee deliberates that bill, amends that bill, and then either votes or tables that bill, if it gets voted out of committee, it goes back to the full chamber, where that full chamber has to then vote to say yes on that bill, no on that bill, or it needs to go to a different committee. And that is that next committee is something that is repeat as needed depending on the subject matter of the bill. And those subject matter kind of guideposts are outlined in official rules for each legislative body. And some things will have to go to multiple different committees, but some things fall under the jurisdiction of only one committee. And that, to kind of give some context, that's largely why the Farm Bill, they're largely reluctant to speak to farm labor, because farm labor actually falls outside of the Agriculture Committee's jurisdiction and falls within some of the other committees like Commerce. So it's just like a real world example of how that jurisdiction kind of both limits and provides opportunities to really get involved. And then once that full chamber votes yes on the bill, gets sent over to the other chamber. So for example, if the House has their farm bill, it gets voted out of committee, it gets voted on the floor, passes, gets introduced to the Senate. And then that Senate does the same thing again. And then if kind of by virtue of that committee process, that bill will have changed. And then what it results is you have the House bill version and then the Senate bill version. And then what is created is the conference committee, which is members from both of those houses or both of those chambers that are subject matter experts or just interested folks and get involved in trying to consolidate those two different versions and create the single version, which then has to get passed in the full chamber again on both because they have to be concurrent. It has to go from the House and then introduced to the Senate or the Senate introduced to the House. They cannot happen simultaneously because then it's not the same bill that's passing through, but two bills that are kind of working alongside each other. Sounds like legal fiction, but there's lots of case law that actually prevents that type of action. Then once that bill gets passed by the House, passed by the Senate, it then goes to the executive body, which is presentment. And some in the federal context, that's the president. In the state context, that's the governor. In the city context, that can be the mayor. And it's definitely depends on the different structures of the legislative body that you're thinking about. But this is generally how legislatures work, right? And as you can see, it's slow, right? This takes a long time. And this takes over the course of usually multiple legislative sessions, that results in year-long, if not decades-long efforts to pass legislation. And it's not for the faint of heart, to say lightly, but I do think it's really goes to show that legislatures depend on that consistent input, right? There's so many steps here. There's so many opportunities for both input from folks that really support these things, but also input from folks that really challenge them. And organizations like us at OFRF and partners are responsible for making sure that legislators can get that information and the attention that they really need to support their action. But it really, one organization is great, but hearing from constituents consistently is how things move, right? And that's how movements are both born and won, is through just the consistent input and deep input as well. Like it's not just sending a little text alert or anything like that, but it's like sending something that shows that you took the time to actually consider what you're saying. And that's something that is really important and kind of leads into the next topic, which is why that direct engagement works.